Welcome to BC TechDays 2024. Now will you please give a warm welcome to Luc van Dijk.
Good morning everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Antwerp, to beautiful Antwerp. Welcome at BC TechDays.
We will be using rooms 5, 7, 8 and 9 for all sessions and have dedicated room 6 as overflow for room 7.
I looked up the alcohol percentages for you to make it more easy for you to make your selection. A complete beer menu with a full description will be published in the conference app. So we listed them all. We have 49. We counted them for you. So let's find out the total number of participants this year. That's 1,243.
So good morning, everybody. It was a year ago we were here at TechDays. It's incredible to think that already 1 year has passed, and so many things happened during the last year. Yes, Luke, you guessed right. We are going to talk a little bit about Copilot during this keynote. I don't know how you figured that out, but I thought, and people use it for all sorts of things. To code, to get a head start and determine company strategy, create agendas, and the industry. So that's why we need you guys to help us with that. We need to work together with this, and we'll show you the tools, and we'll show you all the things we've prepared for you in order for you. So that's one way to use this technology. There's plenty of other ways to use it. And actually, let's go through a little bit of terminology here. Artificial intelligence is something that it's actually an old technology. I think it appeared around the 1950s, and I believe Alan Turing was one of the first scientists who used the term artificial intelligence. You've seen the machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. And within that field, there is another field which is yet a subset of machine learning called deep learning. And deep learning is a little bit different than machine learning in that sense that it is a subset of machine learning. But deep learning, when you do machine learning which is not deep learning, you kind of have an idea of what the rules are and which feature you are going to select, which things are important for the model. Whereas for deep learning, you just let the model train itself. It's a little bit like magic. You don't know what's going on inside the training until your model is fully trained. And within deep learning, there's yet another subset called generative AI. And that's what everybody's talking about these days. And generative AI is about producing new content. Let's jump into it. Let's see what we've done in the product. And we'll show you for inspiration what we have done before we get to the tooling part. And for that, I'd like to invite Horina on stage. Please help me welcome Horina.
Thank you, Lisa. It's so nice to be here today. Purchase orders with electronic invoices, also using Copilot. So let's see how we have done that, and we would like to show you some really great demos today. We have 1,200 it's taking up good business, and so he wants to expand his office setup. And particularly he would like to purchase 2 black office desks and 4 blue chairs.
So you sent you a mail with that?
Yeah. And you know, he's very precise, right? So you can see here that Copilot welcomes me with a message, and it clearly states, how it can assist. It can look up records in the database. It can help me understand business processes, or it can, guide me on how do I do some certain operations with Business Central. How Copilot can help.
So these are prompts which are already made. You could type them manually in the chat, they will do the same thing, but that's kind of the way to help the user getting started with asking things to Copilot. Right?
Exactly. AI-powered experience. So let's go ahead and click on Suggest Sales Line, and now I can describe with my own words what items I would like to add to this quote. And we can be maybe a little bit lazy and just copy-paste directly from Luke's mail and send these to Copilot.
So you just take the text as it is from Luke's mail and just paste it there, no change, all right? Just natural language, what Luke is asking for, and then ask Copilot to find these items.
Yeah, and we're not only looking for the item name and description, we're actually looking for all the related information we have available in Business Central.
There we go.
Yeah, let's review these items.
So I can see the quantity also is put right.
That is correct.
Can you
So
do
let
that?
me add this due month and due year, and then let's ask Copilot to fine-tune this view. And one thing that you should also remember that when we are actually calling the analyze list, we're actually not sending any of your business data.
Guys, I'm always late, I know, with my plan and presentation. So now that Rina helped you to equip your office and get you some discount and some luxurious coffee machine, so I'm going to take it one step further. And don't you think it's going to be cool to actually ask AI to organize the whole event?
Yeah, let's see if we can get
with precision, with efficiency, and then you don't need to be stressed. Oh, Vincent is here, late, Ida is late, and Rina is late, and all that story. So for that, actually, what do you think, Vincent? Should we start coding?
Yeah, let's do a bit of on-stage coding. It's always a lot of fun, right?
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun, especially, in front of all these developers. I love to code live on stage and see what happens using Copilot Toolkit. So what I'm planning to do, because as you know, we have this concept of projects in BC. Earlier we used to call it jobs, and I want to infuse it with AI and create a very special experience for Luke. So action bar. You saw analyze this. Now we have also placed it here, just automatically because we use the toolkit. And then now let's look at the prompt dialog. So this is the experience we did, and you can see the instructions that we add to the prompt area.
So
I don't want 2,000 tasks, but I don't want very limited number. I want to have subtasks. The format should be bulleted. For example, it's also quite important, like it looks nice and fun. I can add some emoji, why not?
So that part is actually it's called a prompt.
With Copilot action, we go and use a very special prompt code. We want to help Luke. We already have amazing 2024 conference, so let's plan it for next year.
Next year, 2025.
What is it mean? So all of third-party apps, we provide them with AI capacity out of the box. It's going to be a very transparent, managed, scalable situation. And I think we are going to announce the private preview. It is holding the final responsible AI review and all those things. So I think around in 2-3 weeks, probably early summer, we will go to private preview with selected customers and partners. And after that, we will go for a public preview. So you don't need a lot of guidance and samples. BCS starts coding with AI Learn, it's all the documentation. And then you have coding samples of what I show, for example, on the stage, a lot of more details. So there's tons of codes and documentation for you to learn more. And we have been, even though we have been investing a lot in AI, but we have continuously, it's our mission, we always have time boxed. We make sure that we are investing on the language, on productivity feature. We make sure that we are investing on the tools, debugging experience, ALGO. We add feature, makes them better, and you can see some of the examples on the screen. Also, we think about how we are modernizing the application stack, how we make refactoring easier for you and non-breaking. And we have great sessions that covering all that, and it's just not talking, you know.
A little bit what we've been doing in that area. So it was kind of a journey that started a while ago when we converted from CL to L. I'm sure you remember that. These things slowly and carefully, so we avoid breaking you as developers and breaking the solution. But we'll keep working on this. And now, you know, I'm sure I'll talk about it next year and the year to come at TechDays, and I'll keep you updated on the progress we're making on that area.
And I really want you to go and check the link BC Developers. We have tons of samples, tons of wisdom, how you can write an efficient and robust code, what are all the tips and tricks, all the great, you know, content that we have and samples all in one place in a very organized and structured way. It's really...
Mean that minute passes. But let's say, for example, that somebody goes and modifies Robert Tom to Bob Tom, for example, in that particular customer here. So if I rerun the scenario here, you'll see what happened. I get a failure because I was expecting Robert Tom. So that's, you know, that's very quickly how you can go and do recordings and replaying and do tests. So I just want to. So this is how a recording would look like. Actually, I'll switch to the slides. I'll show you on the slides. I think it's easier to show it that way. That's how a recording look like. So that's one of the cool things you can do with YAML. Another thing which you might be interested in playing with is test suites. So you can, if you have, you know, very quickly when you start doing recording, you'll figure out that you re-record the same steps for different scenarios. For example, you need to create a customer at the beginning of the scenario. So the interesting things with suites is that you can create actually building blocks. You can say have a block that creates a customer, which you save in its own YAML file, and then you can have another block which validates the customer is in the list, and so on. And you combine these in a test suite like this. You have different steps of type include, and what you do in these steps is that you refer to the YAML file where you have your building blocks. And I can go and send it to a method that takes a variant type. And then again, in my method, I can ask whether this is a type of do good, and I can cast it to I do good stuff type and call the do good stuff method on it. So that's a little bit about interface casting and the is and as keywords. And you'll see it's fine. It has a lot of application, and it's bringing, you know, these kind of features, languages are bringing AL even closer to a true object-oriented languages. There's a lot of focus on AI, obviously, but there are also some of the things we're working on. We're keeping our service world class. We're doing a lot of things like geographic extension, you know, improving the integration with the Power Platform. We do a lot on the fundamentals to increase performance and scalability and reliability. So all these things are also going on. We're not only working on AI.
There you go. Thank you so much. Hello. same watch.
Please, a warm welcome to AJ and Waldo.
All right, so AJ, we got our applause, so we can just go.
Yeah, we can go.
For OGs. OGs being original gangsters. Originally, this session was called for dinosaurs. I can tell you, Luke does not like to be called a dinosaur, and I get it. A dinosaur is extinct. We are not. One request. If I ask a question, I only see like 10% of the people. If I ask a question, instead of hands or whatever, clap once for yes. Don't do anything, because clapping for no would be weird. Okay? Okay. Okay? Okay, so how many OGs do we have here? How many people, let's say, have 5 years of experience? 10 years. I don't know if you noticed, but about every single month, we could have breaking changes. Code reviews, I mean, how do you do that? If you don't have source control, decent source control, how do you do code reviews? You just go into a text file after exporting it from the object design and then, I mean, search like gazillion lines of code, right? It was difficult to do. Who of you did automated testing back in the days? Who of you is doing it now? Okay, much more. That's a good thing.
If you put an app source like this, do not think that you will then really stop other apps from getting access, because it is not a security boundary. That is that some secret field is now marked as a local field. And this locks or excludes anybody inside my app.
We should get used to that. In fact, I really would recommend to switch them on and comply with them, at least most of them. But in any case, do know that when you have these thousands of issues, don't give up. You need to fix them. And to easily fix them, what I would say, let's bend the rules a little bit. Yeah? Switch, have an analysis on what all of your issues that you have, switch them all off, like this one. This is one that I will keep in my code rule set, by the way. I don't like Microsoft deciding how I name my variable. I will decide how I name my variable.
Way of testing, that is kind of your, let's say, your insurance policy. Because then you know when you release the code for the next version of your software, the next version of Business Central, it will be right, it will be working. That doesn't mean that customers should not do some acceptance testing if it works as they expected. I mean, you can write a test, and the test might still be wrong because you're testing the wrong thing. You're not testing in how the customer would expect it to work. But at least the test you write is how you think it is going to work.
This was too much. And maybe, I mean, I don't know if it's a tip or not, but we were fortunate enough to be able to convince internal to do automated testing. At this point, we have about like 8,000 or 9,000 tests for our product. And what I do, I send every single bug that we avoided, because that's what I want to know. What did we avoid? You don't know what you didn't get. You cannot report the time you saved.
That was a bad promise, and they're still promising it. Sometime in the, I don't know, distant future it's going to happen. You were begging them to keep sales price, right?
I still think it's the worst idea ever to remove old sales price.
So many people think like that.
I'm quite convinced that there will be anarchy or some kind. With any kind of PTE extension for customers that develop their own extensions on old sales pricing. and are totally not into testing and continuously upgrading and all that things. And now all of a sudden we remove that and automatically upgrade to new version. No.
It brings all of your event subscribers to, well, most of them to CodeUnit 80 and 90, because you need suddenly subscribe to a different CodeUnit. And to make that easier for you, the events that they passed into or copied into the other CodeUnit are not exactly the same. Of course not. Why? So this is an example where
it wouldn't be a breaking change. It would be so.
Yeah. So this is an example where you actually need to read very carefully what is in the description, what does that mean for me, and I really can recommend you to do that. And then, oh horror, the invoice posting engine was in the first place only available for sandboxes to be enabled in a feature with feature management. So you could develop for it, but it only worked in sandboxes. And then it's going to be a feature that is going, customers can enable it in feature management. Can you imagine that? That a customer switched it on while you were not ready to support it? Well, that is a horror scenario. Etc. Maybe you need to support both old and new feature, which could be a reason for the pragma. Because if I support a new feature, I not want to have the messages from the obsoleted code, because I support the new one already. But hey, the old stuff is still there. So for breaking changes, test everything.
This view could be a table, but it's always a select sum field, right? Before a find set, it will have a big statement being find set and the sum in one SQL statement. And it especially shows when you do that, like when you start with loop. If you already have all your sums, you only have one SQL statement, right? If you do the color field, it's a select sum, it's like the amount of records plus one, the find, amount of SQL statements that you would have.
I wrote a rule, so would it be possible to write a rule that always checks for set autocard fields and set load fields before it finds that?
Yeah, I didn't touch the custom code cops, but it is easy. Not easy. It is definitely not easy. But you would be able to create, like, for any kind of read, check whether what checks you did, like read isolation and set load fields and all those kind of things. Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. We'll intercop.
If there is one, and if it isn't turned off, the validation, and it does call a bunch of code. That is 5 places in total. You don't know the definition of valid for a given field in the current, like nowadays, because you don't know what extensions will end up in the database. The customer could go ahead and just install new extensions. Well, they should test this, they should talk about this, but they don't always do. And also Microsoft installs new extensions from time to time without us noticing. So the definition of valid for any given field could change any point in time. Now the other part that goes along with this, what if I do not load the data into my migration table, as we call it, but load it directly into the destination tables? So that might be those kind of scenarios where you migrate from a previous system, you want to populate the base app just to go live with the customer. Or add event subscribers, event publishers, others can subscribe to with handle pattern, use interfaces, whatever. Just add control possibilities for those for others to turn off the optional code actually, because only that way they can actually still call the validate trigger, but disable your code individually. Otherwise, there is no option left, and they're just not calling the validation code, which then also might skip number of other places and other code as well, alongside with this.
Especially an issue when we're talking about pages, when a user is on a page and calls a validate, and inside of that validate trigger there's a find set, find first, and then jumps to another record, that might lead to a lot of support tickets.
I still think that it might still be a reasonable place to put in extra validation code or reacting on a field change to do extra stuff. There might be places in the posting routines to add that code, I know, but in my opinion, transfer fields is not really the thing you can use because validation code is skipped, and if you really just do not do the typical examples from a base app and just use the transfer fields because, well, somehow the fields map to each other, then you might break other people's extensions, depending on that, or your colleagues.
They actually had a single instance to check whether everything was already in place.
The same idea. If you need this code in global somewhere, then yeah, you need to do a single instance. Just need to be careful to control the state, and just afterwards you can pick up the shit.
I'm a very good developer also. It's 1% job, but
the purpose of this session is to dive into the HTTP client and everything around it, a number of best practices, how do they work, have some focus on, well, why do that? Just the next one, agenda. The default pattern for the HTTP client, so how do we call and how do we handle the exceptions that can happen. What is actually the difference between a get, post, the patch and a send command? Because they are different, but why and how? Get, the post and the put command are basically wrappers around the send method. If you ever ask yourself, why would I use send if I have a get? Or what is the best option to use? Should I use the send or should I use the get? Well, then it may help to know that the get is just a wrapper around the send of the request or response if it really contains data. In most cases, what we do from our code is only set the content type. We do not really care about the content encoding or language. Usually that is not our concern. And the content type, as I will also demonstrate later, is only available on the HTTP content object. If you try to set this on the HTTP client directly, you will get an error message. Not allowed.
Gibt es ein bisschen Vegetar vor Ort?
We got the first version of AEL. It was a little bit of a strange version of AEL. I don't know if anyone is using it anymore, but if you're using it, you may know that you cannot use the AEL extension from Visual Studio Code because you have to use it, the native version, which is delivered with NAV 2018. But just have to start my middle layer. So basically something about my demos. If you see a blue window, it is C#. If you see a gray window, it is AL. Just to clarify where you have changed the colors here. Just launching it now. Connection. The better solution.
So a server with the two printers.
Yeah, the server with the Asia relay and so on would be, if you will go to SaaS, would be the better solution. Okay.
In this example, it would be a Blazor front end with C#. So front ends that do specific things that you can't do in Business Central, where you're addressing specific user groups or something like this. that can also come into play. It will be an AI-free presentation, but of course this is also part of the picture. And the question then becomes, how do we ensure quality? So that is basically the scope what we will look into today. Functional testing to make sure it works, performance testing or load testing to make sure the application performs, and a bit of chaos engineering to make sure to cover the room is on fire scenario. Or GitHub Actions, or Jenkins, or a lot of things that can actually run Playwright. Then we have another Azure service, of course, which is the Microsoft Playwright testing service, and this is just good for running higher workloads in different environments. So you can see here a Linux configuration, a Windows configuration, different browsers, and so on. But what we're going to do today is we're going to directly use Playwright to call our application under load.
Until they're done with their changes, they just don't push things up. And that means the pull request is going to stay in the wait for author state.
I don't really have a way for that just yet. But I would still have somebody who has responsibility for
and then you can say, hey.
Run on multiple processes. In normal places in code where you want to do concurrency and you want to keep people away, you can do mutexes, semaphores, whatever you want to do to keep people out. But if you want to have them out of each other, cross processes, cross sessions, you need to do something else. First we have a find first, we take a record out, we modify it, now we do a find last on a different record. What happens now? Does it lock? Indeed, it locks. So as soon as we intend to write, and now we change the behavior. So we do the insert and get on, and we run more code, and then we do a select afterwards on the table. Now all the selects has the update log, at least until we see some of the try state log that Mads will talk about afterwards.
And you should maybe go in and enable it for your tenants, right? We say version 26 because that's when we're going to de-support it. It kind of, if you want to summarize it, it's kind of pessimistic locking for reads within a transaction. We'll discover that a little bit more. And as Tom said, we're applying these locking hints to SQL statements. Only the one for reads, we don't do it for writes. And then they affect the table state of a given table in a current transaction. Now, that read uncommitted, as long as no writes or log table has been done to the table state in the current transaction. There's an asterisk there, there's a caveat. The caveat is only if you're using the default transaction type. Now, I looked in beta, and I didn't find any places that didn't use that except tests. So if you're using your code, it's going to be slightly different. I will happily explain it to you, not right here on stage, but you can come after and we'll discuss it. However, no logs were taken, so I was allowed to run really fast. And this is kind of an example of where you actually sometimes do need some logs, because else you can end up with this kind of behavior. So, how about update log? Update log does not allow any of this. It's quite strict, actually. There's no dirty reads, because what happens, you can sit and study it. Most of these things we don't have to think about, because it's like schema logs and stuff like that, and we don't change the underlying table, so you don't worry about it. But I just wanted to show you reality, which is a bit more complex, unfortunately, or fortunately.
It adds 14 bytes to every clustered index, every record. So then if you're working with a very large database, your client database could cross over the 80 gig limit. And are they going to suffer cost then?
No, because SQL Server does guarantee that, well, okay, so cost is one thing, but going over the 8K limit, they do guarantee.
I know functionally that's not a problem, but there's a cost involved from a client perspective if you cross that 8 gig limit.
Yes.
Okay, so then it could be a surprise to somebody that by enabling this, that they
The addition that was done is that now we are able to export the data into multiple sheets, slicers. So now it's much easier to export and organize the data and actually build the reports.
That you want the end users to spend on it. And you should always think translation into the design here. So in your B-port extension, define the translation file and make sure that you get all your labels translated.
However, us in Microsoft, we don't want to use it because it presents a security risk. And it's also complicating our code review significantly. Power Query is a shared technology, so you can use it both for Power BI and Excel. Its main purpose is to import and transform the data, and the language that it's using is called columns and rows, replace the values, fill the blanks. There is quite a lot that you can do. Now, we could do the same things with the dimension 1 and dimension 2. We could maybe even merge these queries, so you can get a nice dimension name here. That's very easy to do, however, I want to hide all of these things. And you hide the information. It's going to be saved, and you can just hide it. And then each time when you download the layout, it's going to be hidden out of the box. Getting the data from, right? In my example, I have downloaded it from BC, and then we're getting the data from the sheet. And it's going to stay like that forever, right? Okay. But if you use Tanya's example, where she's reading it from the API, then it's going to be refreshing it all the time. And it's
like this Excel stuff, you can learn it forever. But the tool is where you're going with that. You don't, I was wondering if you don't store all the previous versions, so you can't compare, right?
Exactly. So let me show you here. We go to the code.
From the
right? Now in this case, we do a modify. So we detect that modify and we find the timestamp value. We kind of steal it out. We current behavior. We actually keep track of how we modified it.